Hello, passionate Celtic FC fans. This is Celtic Central News, your exclusive source for Celtic updates. Before we kick off, we appreciate the incredible support. If you love Celtic, subscribe now, hit like, and let's build this community together. Now, on to the latest news. A warm welcome to new subscribers. Your support is crucial. Hail, hail, Celtic supporters woke up this morning to a rumour so wild it near cracked the internet in half, a whisper rolling through Glasgow like a storm off the Clyde, claiming that the Hoops had somehow, against all logic and expectation, swooped in and signed Nicholas Raskin straight out of Ibrox. Aye, that Raskin, the Belgian midfield technician, many in the blue half prized as one of their brightest sparks. The idea alone sent jaws dropping in every pub from Parkhead to Tay Paisley. Folk started firing messages in Tay group chats. Hearts fans peered over their pints, wondering what kind of chaos was about to unfold. And Rangers supporters were left blinking at their screens, not quite sure if they'd stumbled onto a parody account or the most explosive transfer twist of the decade. It felt like one of those moments where Scottish football stops dead, takes a breath, and collectively shouts, "No, surely no." But then again, this is Scotland, where the rivalry brews hotter than a fresh pot of tea on a winter morning, and where the impossible sometimes feels just a wee step away from becoming reality. And that possibility alone was enough to send everyone into a frenzy. The buzz swirling around the city only grew louder as the day went on. The rumour picking up speed like a runaway train rattling down the tracks toward transfer window madness. Folk were saying Celtic had been working quietly behind the scenes, playing the long game, inching their way closer to a player who, until yesterday, would have been considered completely untouchable. And honestly, that's what gave the rumour its real bite, the sheer boldness of it. Raskin's name carries weight, not just because he's a proper player, sharp as a tack on the ball, but because he represents something Rangers fans care deeply about. A symbol of their next era, a lad with technique, intelligence, and that calm Belgian composure in the middle of the park. For Celtic tie even be linked felt like a wind-up, yet each passing hour seemed to add some new detail whispered by someone who knew a guy who knew a guy inside Lennoxtown. It was the kind of wild speculation that makes the Scottish Premiership the chaotic, brilliant theatre it always is, and you could almost feel the electricity crackling through the air like the build-up to a Derby Day tackle. By the time afternoon hit, supporters had formed two camps, the ones who thought the rumour was absolute nonsense and the ones pacing their living rooms, convinced the deal was already done in some secret back room in Glasgow's East End. Social media wasn't helping either, with posts popping up claiming to have spotted Raskin near Celtic Park, though half of them looked like blurry photos of random guys wearing green jackets. Still, even the possibility was enough to light the fuse. What made it even juicier was the backstory folks started spinning, saying Raskin was frustrated, feeling underused, itching for something new, something bold, something that would put his name in the history books. And imagine the shock factor. A Rangers player crossing the divide would be headline news for weeks, maybe months, and would cement Raskin forever in the folklore of the fiercest rivalry in world football. It felt almost too dramatic, too TV show perfect, but that's exactly why the rumour had everyone hooked like they were watching the season finale of Scottish football's longest-running soap opera. As discussions heated up, pundits jumped in with their own take, some brushing it off as clickbait nonsense, others hinting that Celtic had been sniffing around midfield reinforcements for weeks, and might just be bold enough to attempt a move that would send shockwaves far beyond Glasgow, and honestly, that's what makes this story so gripping. The idea that Celtic, never shy of making a statement, might genuinely be cooking up something outrageous behind the scenes. You could practically hear the debates. Would Raskin even dare Tay make the jump? Would he be welcomed? Would he become a villain on one side and a hero on the other? Or would the whole thing simply implode under the weight of the rivalry? Yet for every skeptic scoffing at the madness, there was someone else saying, "Aye, but imagine if that imagination, that tiny spark of possibility, is exactly what gives Scottish football its drama, where the line between truth and rumour blurs quicker than a foggy morning rolling over the Highlands." As evening settled over the city, the chatter still hadn't died down. In fact, it seemed to grow teeth, sinking its claws deeper into every conversation. From taxi rides to cafe corners, people kept asking the same question, almost afraid of the answer. If this is true, what does it mean for the balance of power? Celtic signing a player directly from Rangers would be bigger than any title race twist, bigger than any managerial saga, bigger than half the controversies that usually dominate the tabloids. It would be a seismic shift, a moment folk would talk about for years whenever they discussed transfers that changed the landscape. And there was something about Raskin's story, the Belgian upbringing, the move through Standard Liège and Anderlecht, the polished technique honed in academies famous across Europe, that made the potential move feel even more like a cinematic plot. It was the classic tale of the unexpected hero stepping through the fire, defying expectations and rewriting the script everyone thought was set in stone. And whether true or not, the rumor had already taken on a life of its own. By the time the moon was high, the rumor had grown so big it barely needed facts anymore. Folk started imagining Raskin's debut in green and white, how the crowd would roar, how Rangers supporters would react, how the Belgian midfielder himself would handle the storm of emotions pouring from both sides of the divide. It was like the entire country had turned into one big storytelling session, each person adding another dramatic twist. Some said the deal was done, some said Rangers were blindsided, others insisted Celtic had been plotting this since last season. And in truth, that's the beauty of it. Scottish football thrives on chaos, thrives on rumour, thrives on that sharp edge where reality and imagination collide. Whether Nicholas Raskin ever pulls on the hoops or laughs the whole thing off as the craziest rumour he's ever heard, one thing is certain. For one electric day, the entire nation was talking about the impossible, and that, in its own way, is pure entertainment. As dawn crept into the next day, the rumor hadn't faded like most transfer whispers usually do. Instead, it seemed to inflate even bigger, like a headline the universe was determined to keep alive. Folk were waking up, rubbing their eyes, grabbing their phones, and the first thing they were checking was whether Nicholas Raskin had suddenly appeared in a green and white scarf outside Parkhead. And while there were no official announcements, the silence itself became part of the drama. People were saying Celtic were working under a strict veil of secrecy, the kind of cloak and dagger stuff usually reserved for blockbuster football sagas. Stories spread that Raskin had been impressed by how Celtic handled their business, by the atmosphere, by the chance to be part of something historic, and if even half of that were true, the whole thing took on a much deeper meaning than just a signing. It started feeling like it symbolized a new chapter, a turning point, a statement that Celtic were ready to shake the foundations again, and that sense of anticipation hung over Glasgow like mist over the River Clyde, thick enough to feel in your chest. By mid-morning, every cafe, barbershop, and bus queue seemed filled with the same heated debates, the kind that only Scottish football can produce, where half the conversation is speculation and the other half pure emotion. Hoops fans were torn between excitement and disbelief, their minds racing with the image of Raskin dropping into their midfield with that Belgian elegance, spraying passes like confetti across the pitch. Rangers supporters, meanwhile, were split between outrage and denial, some insisting there was no way their club would allow such a betrayal, others questioning whether something deeper was going on behind the scenes, and the rumors kept mutating. Some said Raskin had met a Celtic representative in secret. Some said he'd already cleared out part of his locker, and some even claimed he'd told a few teammates he fancied a dramatic change. None of it confirmed, of course, but in a rivalry as fierce as this one, rumors don't need evidence. They just need fuel. And Glasgow, as always, had plenty to spare. As the afternoon rolled in, journalists started to chip in, though even they seemed caught between reporting and storytelling. A few said Celtic had been hunting a midfield anchor capable of dictating games with intelligence and precision, and Raskin fit that mold perfectly. Others argued it was all far too convenient, a rumor designed to stir chaos just as the season's pressure was starting to build. But that's exactly what gave the whole saga its energy, the uncertainty, the thrill of the unknown. You could almost imagine Raskin himself scrolling through the madness, seeing his name plastered everywhere, wondering how a simple whisper had turned into the biggest conversation in the country, and whether he liked the attention or not, there was no denying it. He had become the centerpiece of Scotland's latest football drama. The idea that he might walk into Lennoxtown, head held high, training gear freshly pressed, was enough to leave even the most level-headed fans questioning reality. It was the kind of tale that refuses to settle, always finding a way to stay alive just a bit longer. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. By early evening, supporters across the country seemed emotionally drained, yet somehow unable to tear themselves away from the unfolding chaos. Phones kept buzzing with screenshots, voice notes, messages that began with, "Mate, you're no gonna believe this." And that's the magic of a rumor like this. It becomes communal, almost ritualistic, drawing people together in shared disbelief. Some Celtic fans had already begun imagining potential midfield partnerships, analyzing how Raskin could slot into the system, comparing his Belgian upbringing to the high-tempo Scottish environment. Rangers fans, on the other hand, were dealing with the emotional whiplash, wondering how a player they'd hoped would shape their future had now become the character at the center of a possible football betrayal. And the tension in the air felt almost theatrical, like the whole city was standing in a darkened theater, waiting for the lights to come up and reveal whether they'd been watching a comedy, a tragedy, or a complete fairy tale. But until the curtain dropped, the rumor ruled everything. As the night darkened, the narrative twisted once more, with whispers that Celtic had already prepared an unveiling strategy in case the deal actually happened. Some said the club was planning something understated to avoid stoking flames too early, while others claimed they wanted to go big, making it one of the most talked-about signings in modern Scottish history. And just imagining that possibility was enough to set both fan bases spiraling again. If Raskin truly made the leap, he wouldn't just be switching clubs, He'd be crossing a cultural line, stepping into a legacy bigger than most players ever dare to touch. That alone made the rumor irresistible. Folk were lining up theoretical press conferences, dramatic headlines, even picturing the chants that would echo through stadiums across the country. It felt like the entire nation was writing a script together, hoping their version would be the one that came true. And in the center of all this noise, Raskin's name glowed like a spark refusing to burn out. By the time the city finally quietened, long after pubs had emptied and streets had calmed, the rumor still hovered in the air, refusing to fade. It had become more than a story. It was now part of the mythology of the rivalry itself, the kind of tale supporters would remember years from now, regardless of how it ended. Maybe the deal was real. Maybe it was fantasy. Maybe it was somewhere in between, a whisper twisted into a storm by the unique madness that only Scottish football can brew. But one truth stood clear. Nicholas Raskin, the Belgian midfielder with the calm feet and sharp mind, had unintentionally triggered one of the most electric, unpredictable, thrilling rumor storms the country had seen in ages. And whether he ever steps onto the pitch in green and white or remains a blue-shirted figure in Rangers folklore, this saga had already secured its place in the collective memory. Scotland loves its football, loves its drama, loves its stories, and this one, well, this one was pure gold. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.